Imagine a time and a place where the focus of the community was looking after each other, where people noticed when someone was in need, where people were tuned that way, that they could be looking at others at least as much as themselves, or maybe even more than themselves. I had the opportunity to experience this once in my life. In the early 70s, I was doing a lot of traveling around the world, and one morning after a very stormy night on a boat traveling across Lake Victoria, I came to a little town and landed in the town, and the first thing that was on my mind was a place to sleep. I was tired, I was wet, I was hungry, I just needed some place. And I started walking through the streets, kind of looking for a sign or something that would indicate where I could find one of these kind of hotel places. And this fellow starts to call me. He says, "Hey," in Swahili, "Kuja, Kuja, Kuja hapa." And I kind of turned and looked. I thought, well, he can't be talking to me. And so I kept walking, really focused and very tired. And then he called me again. "Hey, you, come here, come here." And I turned around. He was standing near a cab. And I thought, oh, well, I said, no, I don't want a cab. That's okay, it's okay. And I kept walking. He was so insistent. The people on the street were actually starting to look at me and look at him, and, we're causing a bit of a commotion here. So finally I went back to him and I said, what? He says, "Come, yes, Kuja, Kuja hapa kwa mimi, come with me." So I thought, okay, just to get the attention off myself. And so I followed him through the streets and up and down these little alleyways and through these little buildings, and we came to a Sikh temple. And a little building next to the Sikh temple he brought me to, and it had a huge room, like maybe almost this big, with about 50 or so beds in it. And he said, "Are you looking for a place to sleep?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And a few hours later, he came back with a little bowl of curry and a couple pieces of chapati, and he said, "Are you hungry?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And I realized this was his job, not his paying job. This was his duty. This was his responsibility as a member of this community to find people in need, his whole community. And that's what he was doing, back out on the streets looking for somebody else to bring them to this place. And as the day went on, pretty soon there was 20 or 30 of us, all kinds of people. Local people from Tanzania, East Indians, travelers like myself, all had a bed and a roof over our heads and a meal. If you look in any faith tradition and any religion, you will easily be able to find, go on Google, you'll find it, that every faith tradition and religion says that we need to be looking after each other. That we have this beautiful gift of love from God, and it's not only for our enjoyment or to keep it close to us. It is to share. It is to express. It is to talk about. It is to look and see where we can serve each other. Jesus tells us over and over again, love one another. This is the greatest commandment. Love one another. And when we look around in the world, we see very prominent figures who seem to be this love in action and expression. We see the Dalai Lama, and we see Mother Teresa, and we see the works of Mahatma Gandhi. And we're inspired. I don't know about you, I'm inspired by those people and what they've accomplished. But there's also this little part of me that could say, well, yeah, but that was Gandhi. That was Mother Teresa. That wasn't just me. How on earth could I ever do anything that would have an impact, that would have to cause something to change on this planet the way they have? And what Jesus taught us, he taught us in 4 ways. He taught us, if you look at the stories of his life, he taught us by miracles. We see the miracles. He taught us by parables, the stories. He taught us by precepts, by statements, and he taught us by his actions, by his life, what he did, not what he said, not what he taught, not what he said, listen to this is important, by his everyday actions. He talked to the people that nobody was going to talk to in that community. He ate and sat with those people that nobody were the outcasts. that were beyond people, the invisible people. The people at that time in that society would walk right by like they did not exist. Do we have people like that in our society today? You better believe it. I mean, I'll say that when I walk around in our community, there are people that, you know, if I'm not paying attention, I can just totally ignore. But that's not what Jesus tells us to do. That's not what any of the faith traditions tell us to do. They say we need to be paying attention. We need to be looking after one another. And what happens is when we think that there's people like Gandhi and Mother Teresa and the Dalai Lama that are doing these things, we miss all the little things that are happening all the time. Hundreds of these acts of love and expression have already taken place right here this morning. And we miss them, we can easily miss them because they don't make headlines, they're not a prominent person. Thank God that it's not only these handful of people who are expressing love and action that are working on our planet. Thank God it's each one of us. That we all have that ability, that capacity to share what we have, what God's already given to us. A few months ago, I went to Hillside Mall, and I was sitting at Zeller's waiting for someone, and there's an area in between the outside door and the inside door. And there's some chairs there, and I was waiting there, probably for about 15 minutes. And when I noticed, I was just astounded, and if you don't take time to notice, you don't. So how many people held the door for each other? Strangers. I could tell. Someone coming out, someone coming in. They hold the door till the other person comes in. Little kids opening doors for older people, men, women, everybody. Didn't matter. Just taking that one little moment to see, is there anyone after me or is there anyone before me, and can I open the door? It's happening around us all the time. Martin Luther King Jr. says, everybody can be great because everyone can serve. You don't have to have a college degree. You don't have to make your subject and verb agree, thank goodness. You only need a soul generated by love. Everybody can be great. We're all doing this. We are all giving all the time, but are we doing it consciously? Are we doing it knowing the impact of what we are doing? Are we doing it in a way that expresses our highest and our best? Or are we just kind of doing it when we remember or when it seems convenient for us? And so the question is, how does love translate into action? You know, our blessing teams are love in action. And, you know, love is a big thing. It's like, well, how do I go out and be loving? This past winter, I facilitated a retreat, and the theme of the retreat was divine love, something like that. And some of you here attended that retreat. And one of the things we did is we said, how does love show up? Like, what are the faces, what we call the faces of love? Like, we have that big mirror ball up there that I'm sure they were using last night, and it's one big, beautiful, glittery thing, maybe like divine love, but on it are 100 little mirrors that are all facets of that one thing. So how does love show up? It shows up as, think about it, because I'm going to ask you too, but I'll start you off. It shows up as kindness, generosity, compassion, gentleness. What else? Mercy, thoughtfulness, understanding, taking time, yeah. Believing in the good, that's right. Seeing the good. Humor. Food. Love shows up as food. I remember when I was taking my children to my mom's house, and they just, my mom would just be loading them down with the food, and they're like, Mom, I can't eat anymore. And I said, that's one of the ways that Grandma shows you how much she loves you, is by cooking all these special meals for you. So we see that when we have all these aspects, now maybe that's something you can grasp a little bit more than love. Maybe gentleness, kindness, compassion. Maybe these are the things that we can kind of get a grasp on and say, yeah, I can do that. I know how to be kind. I know how to be understanding. I know how to show my love through making someone a good meal. Teresa of Avila says, God has no hands or feet or voice except ours. and through these he works. So we all have this amazing potential within us. All that God is lives within us. That's one of our principles. And it's up to us to make that love visible. There's a story of compassion I'd like to share, and this is one of those ones that's very inspiring. I know I could never achieve this, but I think it's worthwhile to look at the really big pictures as well as the small acts of kindness that we do. When I was at a Unity convention, one of our Unity ministers was at a roundtable event with the Dalai Lama just this last June. And the Dalai Lama met with world religious leaders, and he was representing New Thought, this minister. And when he was at this discussion table, including monks from Tibet, this one monk had shared the story about how he had just escaped from Tibet and he had been imprisoned and tortured for a long, long time. And then the monk said, and then I was afraid. And the Dalai Lama said, afraid that you would lose your life? And he said, no, that I would lose my compassion. The life wasn't important. But his principles, his being an expression of God, of living in his spirituality and his knowing and oneness, that's what he was afraid of losing. And Mother Teresa says, she gives us simple instructions. I just love it. She doesn't say, how we can be love in action. She doesn't say, go out and do great works and, come with me to India and work with the poorest of the poor. She just says this: spread love everywhere you go. Be a living expression of God's kindness. Kindness in your face, kindness in your eyes, kindness in your smile, kindness in your warm greeting. Now that is doable, isn't it? That we can do. In Paul's letter to the Galatians, he says, use your freedom and, through love, serve one another. In other words, we have this incredible spiritual freedom within us in this gift that's not limited in any way. So let's use that, and through our love, to serve one another. And when we look at the world and we think, well, how could I serve? If you look at the world and read the newspaper and look at TV and radio, it can sometimes look kind of bleak. Like there's all this, bad stuff going on, and how could I ever make a difference? How could anything like that? What's the point, really? But a young woman working with the youth gangs in Vancouver in the Lower East Side, she said, when someone said, you know what, the crime is just getting worse. The gangs are just being more prevalent, and there's more crime. So, what's the point? And she said, just because something is impossible doesn't mean you don't do it. I thought, what inspiring words. I'm sure what we will give, the tasks that we will give ourselves would probably be a lot easier than hers.